Title: He was only 12 and a spy for the Allies, in the heart of Nazi-occupied France. During one of the darkest moments of World War II, a boy walked silently through the fog. His name was Marcel Pinty. He was 12 years old. To the world, he was just another French schoolboy, thin, brown-eyed, quiet. To the enemy, he was invisible. But to the French resistance and the Allied forces, he was one of the most trusted couriers in the underground war, a ghost in a child's skin, carrying intelligence more valuable than bullets. Marcel's story doesn't begin with gunfire or glory. It begins in a small village called Aix-sur-Vienne, just outside of Limoges in western France. He lived with his family in a modest house tucked away near the woods. His father, Eugene Pinty, wasn't just a father or a husband. He was a commander in the French resistance, known by the code name Athos. The house was more than a home. It was a headquarters, a secret hub where Allied messages were decoded, strategy whispered, and sabotage missions planned. From an early age, Marcel absorbed the whispers. He sat quietly during late-night meetings, listening to men in shadows speak of explosions, train lines, escape routes, and death. He watched his mother prepare bandages. His sister learned Morse code. War didn't knock on Marcel's door. It moved in, lived in his home, and became his world. One evening, as dusk painted the sky with shades of ash, a resistance courier never returned. He had been caught or killed. Panic flared among the group. A vital message from the British needed to reach fighters stationed near Limoges, a journey that crossed multiple German checkpoints. The risk was almost certain death. And then a voice rose from the corner of the room. "I can do it," Marcel said. Laughter was the first response. His father looked at him with a mix of fear and disbelief. But Marcel was not smiling. He repeated himself, "I can do it." He explained that no one would suspect a child, especially one who looked as young and harmless as he did. He knew the trails, the soldiers, the language, and the signs. Most of all, he knew the risk, and he didn't flinch. After heated argument and a reluctant vote, Marcel was given his first mission. The following morning, with a torn satchel over his shoulder and dirt on his shoes, Marcel walked toward the nearest checkpoint. Inside the lining of his jacket were scraps of paper, each one appearing blank. But under heat or in acid, they revealed British code, troop movements, supply drops, coordinates, warnings. Messages that, if delivered, could save hundreds of lives. Messages that, if discovered, would cost him his own. As he approached the checkpoint, a German soldier raised his hand. Marcel stopped. The soldier stepped forward, asked for his papers. Marcel handed him a forged school ID and told him he was late for lessons. The officer eyed him suspiciously, reached for the bag. Marcel sneezed. The soldier laughed, patted his head, and let him pass. It became routine. Marcel carried messages across forests, through rivers, and into enemy-held towns. He memorized names, routes, and signals. He learned how to hide in plain sight, at bakeries, behind wheelbarrows, next to sheep. He was a shadow. He never asked questions, never made mistakes, and never once failed a mission. But each journey wore on him. He grew quieter, older in the eyes, more withdrawn. There were nights when he'd come home with bloody feet, soaked clothes, or bruises from a fall. Once he returned with no satchel at all. The Germans had taken it, but never thought to look at his belt, where the note was folded between two coins. By the summer of 1944, the tide of war was turning. The Allies had landed in Normandy, and hope was returning to the hearts of the French people. But with it came chaos. The Germans were desperate, and the resistance was more active than ever. Ambushes, skirmishes, and betrayals surged across the countryside. On August 19, 1944, just days before France would be liberated, a major operation was planned. British paratroopers had landed nearby, and resistance forces were organizing a coordinated strike. Marcel was given a critical message. It contained times, names, and the position of German patrols. He strapped it to his chest, kissed his mother on the cheek, and disappeared into the woods. He never returned. Later that night, reports came in. Friendly fire, confusion. In the darkness, someone had mistaken the young boy darting between trees for an enemy scout. A bullet tore through his chest. He died instantly. When the resistance reached his body, they found the message still intact. Untouched by blood or weather, he had fulfilled his final mission. Marcel Penny was buried beneath a simple cross in his village. For decades, his story faded into obscurity, passed quietly from mouth to mouth, rarely recorded, rarely believed. A child spy? A boy delivering wartime secrets? It sounded like legend, but legends are born in truth. In 2020, 76 years after his death, the French government officially recognized Marcel Penny as a hero. A military ceremony was held in his honor. Veterans stood in silence. His name, once whispered in shadows, was spoken into microphones. Soldiers saluted. Children listened. And France remembered. Today, his name is etched in memorials, and his story is taught in some schools. But still, many have never heard of him. No medals decorate his chest. No grand monuments stand in his name. Only a few faded photographs, and the echoes of his courage remain. Marcel Penty wasn't trained in war. He never fired a gun. He didn't wear a uniform. But he fought with silence, with bravery, and with purpose. He risked everything not for glory, but for freedom. And he died not as a boy, but as a soldier, in a war filled with generals, tanks, and bombs. Sometimes, the most powerful weapon is a 12-year-old boy with a message no one could afford to lose. If you listen close in the hills of Aix-sur-Vienne, when the wind is just right, you might still hear the footsteps of a child, quiet, quick, determined, carrying history on his back.